All right, everybody, welcome to the official Hypnotic Arts Training question and answer sesh. So we are so excited to have you here. What we're first going to do is just like open the circle anytime we get together for the Hypnotic Arts Training, whether we're learning, discussing, swapping sessions, whatever it is that we're doing, we always open the circle and close the circle, just to make sure we're all present and here and grounded and protected and connected. So we're going to start with that, and then we'll go into our bios. We'll go into a little bit more about the training. There'll be a chance for you to ask questions, and then, yeah, that's how we'll end it, and then we'll close it. So let's start with this opener. What we like to do, I like to just kind of heat up my hands and put them somewhere on my body, but you can put your hands wherever feels comfortable for you. Maybe even sitting up tall on your spine, drop chin to chest if that feels good. And just blinking your eyes if that feels good to you, and just being here. Maybe you can feel yourself in this chair or wherever you are. And maybe you can feel your breath. No need to change it. Just feel it. Maybe you can even feel the subtleties of your heartbeat. And now what I want you to do is just imagine, sense, feel, know that you have a spark of light at the very center of your being. And this spark of light, I want you to imagine it in your mind, hold it in your awareness, and just know this is the ancient, eternal, all-knowing part of you. It's the part of you that lives life after life and life in between lives. It's the part of you that holds all the memories and all the plans. And so what I want you to just imagine is this light just growing bigger and brighter with every breath that you take. Effortlessly and automatically, this light becomes just as big, even a little bit bigger than your physical form. And just be in this light that you are, in the protection it holds. When you fill yourself, totally animate yourself with exactly who you are and what you are. And just feel the peace and protection that comes with that. And just know that whether you're here in the present with us or listening in the future, we're all stepping into this portal in the present moment. Just stepping in to learn more and decide what the next best step is for our journey. And we start here, just opening to learning, hearing the questions that rise within you, and using your voice to communicate those questions. Good. And let's just seal this in with one full breath together as we officially step into this portal and into this learning. So blow all your air out of your lungs. Take a deep breath in and a full breath out. And then blink open your eyes. And welcome, welcome. Officially in the space, I am Gina Sear. I'm currently living in Prescott, Arizona. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'll pass it off to Sarah. So I am a hypnotist. That's how I describe what I do. And I do it in so many different ways. But I have been a client of hypnosis since 2013, and I have been a client specifically of past life regression since 2015. In 2018, I worked with my teacher, Madonna Kettler, and she was trained by Michael Newton of the Michael Newton Institute, also National Association of Transpersonal Hypnotherapists. So that is the lineage in which I learned through. And that is where I started. But that was 2018 when I very first started learning or got certified and trained to lead these sessions. But since then, I would say my own experiences and my clients are my biggest teachers on what is this world, what are these unseen realms, and what are the best ways to navigate them and learn what are all the ways that we can navigate these spaces and learn to make our life better today. So yeah, as I was doing this work, I created Past Lives in the Divine, and that podcast, Past Lives in the Divine, was really there just because I wanted to have more conversations about past life regression. And when I started first doing past life regression, people were like, I get past lives. I kind of understand what regression means, but like, why? And so I didn't have a lot of clients. So I had a lot more time. And so I created a podcast about it. And then it wasn't very long before people were like, where did you get trained? I want to get trained by you. And so I decided to create a training, but I knew that I didn't want to do it alone. And I knew that I needed someone with some sort of academic background. And at the same time I was having those thoughts, I was also getting to know Sarah Leverett as a client, as a colleague in hypnosis. And yeah, I asked her to be my partner in it. And that was over 2 years ago. And here we are. We're running our third cohort of students and really excited to be here with every cohort. We have taken feedback, made improvements, and every time we do a Q&A, I'm like way excited to unveil kind of like our new upgraded version of the training. So excited to share that with you today. Sarah, tell everybody about yourself.
Yeah, hey everybody. I am Sarah Leverett. And like I dropped in the chat, I am currently living in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm originally from South Alabama, spent some time in Birmingham, and then lived in New Orleans for a few years as well. Yeah, I have a business now called Intuitive Empowerment, where I guide self-exploration and create community, all grounded in magic and in Mother Nature. Yeah, I'm a hypnotist, a mentor, an intuitive reader, and I've been working with intuitive empowerment for 3 years now. But before that, I was in the field of education. I taught middle school English, seventh grade English, eighth grade English. And then when I transitioned out of the classroom, I moved into the education nonprofit space. So I worked as a program manager with mostly juniors and seniors in high school, but through the nonprofit route. I did that for a while. But yeah, while I was building my career in education and in academia, I was also simultaneously learning about myself, about hypnosis. I remember the first time I heard that past life regression even existed, my mind was just blown. And I couldn't stop reading about it and learning about it. And that's how I found Gina and Gina's podcast. So yeah, I started listening to all of Past Lives and Divine, as much of it as I could get my hands on. And yeah, because Gina's lineage was through Nath, I also wanted to follow the path with Nath. See English poetry coming in there, Nath path. And at the time, the only person that I could find anywhere in my area to get trained through Nath was in South Alabama, which really blew my mind, being that that's where I was from. And I was living in New Orleans at the time. So I thought surely, right, New Orleans would be the place. But I got trained in South Alabama by a woman named Kathleen Peters, who is retired and just kind of teaching through Nath as a way to keep her love for hypnosis alive. So Kathleen has the very similar lineage as Gina's teacher. She was trained by Alan Chips and Michael Newton as well. And so, yeah, that's how I got here and to be a hypnotist, and, wanted Gina to mentor me as well. So asked Gina to mentor me in getting my business off the ground and up and running. And, Honestly, when I took the leap to entrepreneurship, I didn't really expect to put my curriculum writing and academic background to use. So it was really, really special to me and really exciting to see my academic um, career and now my career as a hypnotist come together with the hypnotic arts. So yeah, this is very much so aligned and beautiful work, and I'm very glad to be here. All right. So let's jump in here. Um, yeah, I remember sitting at the very end of my training as a hypnotist and realizing that pretty much every single person in our history book was a white man, and pretty much every single person in our like future resource list to check out were white women. And so it was very important to me and to Gina to not just stop at that awareness, but to actively think about it and to put it into our curriculum and to, weave it into our philosophy that we acknowledge and we're working to unlearn and decondition the ways in which we see racism and patriarchy in the hypnotic field. And so we're working to first start inside of each of us and bring that deconditioning into our work. So we realize that even in our past two cohorts, it's been mostly white women. And so we are gathering resources and working towards decolonizing, and we just want to be upfront with our students about that in our program as well. So what makes our training unique is this focus on intuition and this focus on hypnosis as more of an art rather than a science. So when I first heard of past life regression and had to try it out and had my first session with Gina, yes, on one hand, I was blown away by the past life side of that. But what I really walked away with was this new embodied sense of what my intuition felt like. I think before I found hypnosis and past life regression, I thought of my intuition and my empathy and my gift as something to work towards or reach for and look for in the spirit realm. Whereas hypnosis really taught me a lot about turning in and uncovering the layers and going deep and remembering what intuition feels like, because it's very much so being in our bodies, being in touch with our senses. And so we're really proud to have weaved this idea of accessing your own intuition through embodiment, through your senses, to lead the way as a hypnotist. And really make it your own, really get creative with it, really make it an art. So we talk a lot about intuition. We talk a lot about accessing your own intuition, about following your intuition in each and every session, and then also acknowledging that your clients have their own intuition and their own gifts that they're bringing to the session as well. So we're really proud to say that we really focus on intuition and hypnosis as an art in our training program. So a little bit about our philosophy and what we really grounded ourselves in as we were building the curriculum. We acknowledge that hypnosis is simply a tool. And one of the things that we dive into in the training is this idea of all the stereotypes around hypnosis. One of them being that hypnosis is mind control, or somehow the hypnotist is doing something to the client to get them to the hypnotic state. Where in fact hypnosis is just a tool and we are just facilitators. And so we really root down and ground down in the fact that the power is in the intuition and already within us and each of our clients. And just really look at hypnosis as one of many, many tools that we can utilize to access healing. And again, hypnosis as an art, not a science. Of course, we will give you the technique. Of course, we will give you the skills and the research and the history. But at the end of the day, we want it to just be the foundation so that you can launch from there into the artistic, creative world of hypnosis. We lead with our heart, we lead with our intuition. We try to leave the shoulds and the expectations and the comparisons and all of that outside of training, and really just come into the space ready to be heart-centered and intuition-led. And yeah, of course, like I said, the skills and the technique and all of that is the knowledge. But we really believe that through experience, through practice, through hands-on learning, that's where the wisdom comes, and then eventually the embodiment. So we don't just give the lecture and the knowledge and the reading, but we really build in practice and experience and time to work on moving that knowledge into wisdom and embodiment. And again, as we do this for ourselves and for each other and our clients, we're really working to decondition this, the patriarchy and the racism that's, leaked into every system that we have. So, being very much so grounded in art and intuition and the more feminine way of leadership is one of the ways that we see this healing and this unlearning and this deconditioning coming into play. Yeah, and again, as the hypnotists, we are simply the guides. We are simply the ones that just create the space. So every single session is client-centered. And we talk about this and how using the client's intentions and their own language is the way to go with hypnosis. And so it's never that the hypnotist is really even in the driver's seat, more so just creating the space and creating a beautiful, safe car for the client to get into the driver's seat. So every session is meant to be client-centered, and the hypnotist just being there as the guide. And we talk a lot about how to create that safe space, how to be non-judgmental in these spaces, while also, right, acknowledging that we do all have preconceived notions and we all are subject to stereotyping, but there are ways to ground and protect and connect ourselves in these sessions. So yeah, the final thing I'll say on this slide is a little bit about that transpersonal piece that Gina and I mentioned, that we're both trained in transpersonal hypnosis. Transpersonal just means not only mind and body, but also spirit. So every session that we offer, we have a grounded belief that it is protected by whatever it is that is divine to you and to your clients as well. So that really takes a lot of pressure off on getting it just right. And it really can help lessen some of the pressure that we can put on ourselves as humans with egos and minds, to just really work on believing that every single session is divinely guided. And of course, we have responsibilities, and of course, we will learn everything we need to learn to create the space. But at the end of the day, just trusting that we get out of the session everything we're meant to get out of the session, and then the client does as well.
Yeah, I'll build on that just for a second, Sarah. One of the reasons why I felt like I wanted to create a training was because I had met so many people who I would say, "Oh, I just got certified in hypnosis," or, "Oh, you should listen to my podcast. I talk about past life regression." And I would meet so many people who would say, "I've been certified in that," or "I learned how to do that." And then I would say, "Do you do it now? Can we swap sessions?" And a response that I got most of the time when someone would tell me that they had done a hypnosis training was that when they came out, they were terrified of the client not going anywhere, terrified of the client getting stuck in the black. And that fear was really something that was like preventing them from seeing clients and offering this service, which I was like, you got to use your intuition. So when I created a training, I was like, we need to teach people more than just the nuts and bolts foundation of a hypnosis session, especially when you talk about navigating these unseen realms, past lives, spirit guides, your higher self, connecting with ancestors, all the things that we can do with it. We're asking our clients to use their intuition. We need to use our intuition in that, along with our skills. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to create a training. And one of the things that I think that makes our training unique is that piece of learning your own intuition and learning to navigate these unseen realms with your intuition. So you can eliminate that fear, along with all the skills. We not only teach the skills to do the session, but we also speak to crazy shit that can happen during a session, like encountering entities, doing all kinds of shadow work, all of these things, your client getting stuck in the black, the client not seeing the light, all of these things that can go wrong, that we also specifically not only teach to, but allow you to listen to real sessions where I've navigated that or Sarah's navigated that. So it really is above and beyond just the skills of how to do a session like this. We also do the business portion of it. So that was another thing where people would be like, well, I came out, I was ready to do it, but I don't know how to see clients. And so I am not a business expert. Sarah's not saying she's a business expert, but we both open the curtains and tell you how we do things in our business. And then I help to guide in like any website creation that you want to do. So it is so much above and beyond just the foundational learning. But of course, we will give you those skills. So I just wanted to add that in there, Sarah.
Yeah, beautiful. Um, so all together, this training ends up being over 120 hours, mixture of self-paced, digital, live, reading, practice, discussion, coaching. So there are many different facets, but overall it's around 120 or just above 120 hours. So the first type of learning with this cohort is going to be the digital self-paced learning. So we really want to save our live class time together for more discussion and practice and really getting into the nitty-gritty of all of those juicy questions that we have around hypnosis. So we've shifted all of the lecture and the front loading of information to digital learning that you watch in a self-paced manner. However, it will have due dates that correspond to the live class discussion. So it will be important to stay on the schedule and to keep on track with the group as far as that digital self-paced piece, so that when we do come together in the live class times, that we'll all be ready for discussion and reflection and questions and be on the same page about that. So beyond the digital videos that will be due before the live classes, there's also 2 books that will make sure that you have the titles for the required reading, and then an additional script book resource as well. So built into some of the training hours is reading the books. And then throughout the program, not only will you be swapping sessions with each other, but you'll also be doing practice sessions with friends or families or clients or volunteers. And don't worry about that. If you don't have anyone in your circle that might be ready to try hypnosis, we have plenty of alumni, plenty of people in our community who are more than willing to jump in as guinea pigs. So you'll be doing a lot of practice live and with each other outside of class and with practice clients. And then beyond that, we stay in touch pretty consistently on WhatsApp. Gina and I are always there to answer questions in between the live classes. And then, of course, working with each other and discussing things with each other is really helpful in between classes as well. So we will be in WhatsApp for that. We also now have alumni who love to jump in and help and share resources as well. Um, and so we can always pull them in for insight too. Um, and then finally, our training program does have some coaching opportunity as well. So throughout the training, you will get 2 one-on-one coaching sessions. One falls around the middle of training to help with one of your projects, and then one comes closer to the end of the training to assist with actually taking this from training out into your practice outside of training. And then as far as the curriculum and how it breaks down as far as what we're learning and how we spend only about 10% of those 120 hours on the history of hypnosis and the clinical side of hypnosis. So with transpersonal hypnotherapy, that is not necessarily clinical in the sense of assisting with mental health or that sort of thing, but we will absolutely cover things like um, general stress relief, habit cessation, things like helping people with sugar addiction or smoking. We will cover those things that are typically more so in a clinical setting, but it's only about 10% of the training. But if that's what you're interested in, you will have that opportunity to take those skills away from the training. And then about 20% of the training is around setting your own intentions and values as a hypnotist, digging into philosophy, values, learning a lot about Gina's personal experience as a hypnotist, my experience as a hypnotist, our alumni's experience as hypnotists. And, again, reading and researching and doing things, learning from other hypnotists. And then another 20% of the training is that intuition piece that we talked about. So whether that's getting ideas of, how to develop your own intuition, whether that's coming up with rituals around how you're going to begin and end each session, whether that's actually practicing using your intuition, that part is about 20%. The bulk of the training is specifically in the past life regression technique. So that's about 30% of the training. The good news is with past life regression is not only do you get really good at past life regression, but those skills apply to current life regression, so age regression. Those skills also apply to future life progression or future or current life progression. So while past life regression is the bulk of the training, those skills can be implemented in so many different types of hypnosis sessions. And then 10% is more so what happens in between those past life memories. So one theory is the life between lives, or as Gina calls it, the space between lives, but also connecting with spirit guides or the divine or just unconditional love or your inner child, whatever it is that feels spiritual and divine for you and your clients. We'll cover how to do those types of sessions as well. And then finally, the last bit of training really gets into the nitty-gritty of, okay, now what? Right? Like I have this training, I have this wisdom. So now how do I use it to build a niche or to build a business or to actually get this out into the world? So we'll definitely cover that as well. Yeah, so we kind of group all of this content into 3 different buckets. One being the foundation of being a hypnotist, the foundation of hypnosis as a modality. So this is where we go into the background of knowledge. This is where we really start with that solid, grounded foundation of how we do this, how we got here, how hypnosis has evolved over the years, how it's still evolving as a technique and as an industry, what it really is, right? Because part of being a hypnotist is going out and helping people unlearn and decondition all of the really negative stereotypes out there about hypnosis. So you'll be ready with information to combat that. This is where we give the basics of each of those different types of techniques. So past life regression, space between lives, spirit guide session, really more of the knowledge and the foundation of it all. And then once we get that solid foundation, then we're ready to explore. This is where the intuitive piece comes in. This is where your own personal interests come in. Another thing we're really proud of in this training is that we really foster this sense of bringing your own background, your own intuitive gifts, your own interests, your own curiosities into the field and furthering the field that way. So yeah, one of the I guess central points of this exploration bucket is an exploration project that each of our students puts together. So about 8 hours of doing your own reading and learning and exploring, and then coming back to the group and sharing and becoming the teacher in that way of sharing what you've explored and how you've furthered your own understanding of the field. Yeah, and then finally, beyond the exploration, then we move into vocation. So actually putting this wisdom into practice, moving it into embodiment. So this is where you'll kind of start narrowing down where you see yourself taking hypnosis. So whether it's going to be a supplemental modality to something you're already doing, whether you see yourself completely changing careers and only doing hypnosis, whether you plan to only share this with your friends and family, whatever it is, we want to assist you and support you in transitioning this into the next phase after training. So yeah, we'll definitely assist through coaching and through the second project, which is the niche project, where we take what we've built in the exploration project and then create some sort of tangible, practical resource. So whether you end up creating a website or getting started on social media or creating some hypnotic tracks, you will absolutely walk away from this training with a completed, practical, tangible thing that you can go ahead and put out in the world after training. All right, so our plan for 2024 is to begin on January 23rd. You will receive a registration link via email after this Q&A. So be on the lookout for that. And we only have space for about 12 students in the cohort. We like keeping it intimate. We like being able to make personal connections with each of you. We like to be able to get to every single question that we have. We like to be able to personally review some of your work as a hypnotist. We like to be able to really connect in WhatsApp and get to all your emails. So we're going to keep it a small group with that intention. Yeah, and we look forward to getting to know you all over the experience. All right, so this training is about 3 or 4 trainings of other trainings we've seen out there. And so we're really proud of that. And we're really proud of this belief that we should be able to access all of this information and not gatekeep it from each other with levels that you have to kind of move through this hierarchy of understanding before you can get to the stuff like shadow work and entities and that sort of thing. So with that being said, we've priced this at $2,750. But we'd really like to go ahead and get as many of you registered as possible with the early bird price. So you have from now until the end of 2023 to register at the 2345 price. And again, most trainings are a greater investment and they don't cover, near as much of the shadow work, if at all. That business coaching piece is so important, the one-on-one coaching piece. So that's why we have chosen to price it like we have. And we're also offering a scholarship as well. Again, this comes back to that first slide about seeing a need for more diversity and more voice outside of European American voice in the field. And so if you or anyone identifies as woman, non-binary, trans, especially in the Black and Indigenous communities, please take advantage of this scholarship, pass it along, get the word out there that we'd love to offer this training at 50% off. In the attempt to get more expertise outside of European American in the space and in the community. So we would absolutely love to put this scholarship to use this time around.
Okay, so if you decide to register, we would love to have you, and you will get access to the platform. So the platform, the main page, the resources page, this is kind of the hub for everything that you're going to have access to throughout the whole training. So when you first log in, and you'll do that through, it says account, if you go to the hypnoticartstraining.com or hypnoticartscoalition.com, also linked in your registration. Once you register, you'll get an email with the link, but you'll just hit account. And then if you haven't been logged in, you can hit login. And then this is the main page. So when you first get to the learning platform, you can see here, this is the resources page. So we're going to click there in just a second. But these class pages very soon, not currently, but very soon, once you click on this, it'll say, oh yeah, so it's not going to work. But once you click on this, then a page will come up and it'll be the page for that class. So it'll include any digital learning that is due by the time we meet on that date, any reading that's due, any client swapping that's due, anything that's due, any resources you need will be linked on that page. So there's a page for each class, and you can find everything for that class on that page. So what's due, how to get to that class, like the Zoom link, the time, the date, all that stuff. So that is the page. There are 12 classes. You can see the dates and everything there. Then we'll go to the training resources. So this page might look a little different within the next month because I'm going to be updating it just to try to make it a little bit more intuitive and a little bit easier to access, which is something I'm always trying to do. So, but your required books are here. So the first half of the training, the second half of the training, the 2 books, and then the third book, which is for use throughout the entire training. And then we have some Past Lives in the Divine episodes that we've chosen that are good for education in this space. So you'll have a chance to listen to some or all of these if you want. We have different demo sessions that you'll be required to listen to throughout the training as a part of your education, as a part of that 120 plus hours. And then we also have different scripts that we've created. Sarah and I have created scripts specifically for students and alumni of the Hypnotic Arts training. So we have scripts for navigating tricky scenarios, the space between lives, and then scripts for past life sessions, any sort of exploration outside of past lives, including spirit guidance. And then you'll have access to all the hypnotic tracks and Past Lives in the Divine. That is something that I want you to use personally. I want you to use as a hypnotist, creep on it, see what you would do different, make your own hypnotic tracks. So you've got that. Yeah, and then we've got all kinds of books that you could read. And then we have access to the WhatsApp group. So a ton in the training resources page that might be organized a little bit different, but essentially there's kind of 2 main pages. There's the class page, that's this one, and the resource page.
All right. So again, after you register and get into the training officially, our first gathering will be orientation. So orientation is scheduled for January 23rd, which is a Tuesday, from 6 to 8 Central. And many of our classes end up being Tuesdays, 6 to 8 Central. And all of the live stuff happens on Zoom. So between now and orientation, so once you registered, once you get inside the training, you can go ahead and get started. You can go ahead and jump in. So we suggest going ahead and getting a journal or some sort of notebook, a place where you can keep all of your notes and your questions and your downloads and any information you get from your own hypnotic journeys. Again, because when we come into those live sessions, when we get together, we want to answer those questions. We want to, hear your reflections. We want to really dive into it. So as you're reading, as you're listening, as you're learning, it's important to capture your notes. So you can go ahead and get started with that. And then you can go ahead and get started with the reading. So the past two cohorts, the one piece that gets a little tricky is keeping up with the reading. So we just suggest going ahead and get started now. So the first book is Clinical Hypnotherapy, a Transpersonal Approach. And that's written by Alan Chips. And that is where we'll really get our foundation for the history of hypnosis, different skills, different techniques, and again, that transpersonal lens of mind, body, and spirit for hypnosis. The second book is called Regression Therapy, a handbook for professionals. That one is by Winifred Blake Lucas. Be mindful here that there are 2 volumes of this book. You only need one. You're more than welcome to purchase the second one. It is on our suggested list, but it's not required at all. So you just need volume 1. And then when you get that book, don't be alarmed because it's like this thick. We're only reading the first like 160 pages of the book. So those are the 2 books that are required reading. So we start with clinical hypnotherapy and then go into regression therapy. And then finally, it is required to have a script book. We suggest Script Magic, a hypnotherapist desk reference. And that's written by the same guy who wrote Clinical Hypnotherapy, Alan Chips. That's the book that I have, that Gina has, that many of our alumni have. So it's just, it's nice to have because we can, refer to the same page numbers and that sort of thing. But if you have another script book that's calling to you or that you want to get, it's just important that you have a script book. And then finally, if you're really eager and really ready and you just want to jump in, Gina and I are going to work to go ahead and get access to the first piece of the digital learning and the independent assignments up. So as soon as that's up, you're free to go ahead and get started. Just remember that we are going to have a set pace for discussions and reflections and all that sort of thing. Okay. Just a couple more slides here and then we'll take questions. Yeah, so there are 12 live class times, all on Zoom. Oftentimes they're on Tuesdays from 6 to 8 Central. Sometimes they're on Sundays from 2 to 4 or 2 to 4:30 Central. And usually if it's on a Sunday, it's because it's a day where we're swapping sessions. And for those of us that have, a 9-to-5 job, it's just a little tough to get off at 5 and then transition into leading a hypnosis session. So that's why some of them are on Sundays from 2 to 4 or 2 to 4:30. Generally, we tried to space them 2 weeks apart, but that's not always true, especially if we're practicing. So sometimes we'll practice on a Sunday and then meet on a Tuesday, or we'll practice on a Sunday and then meet the next Sunday. So just sit with your calendars, sit with your personal responsibilities, and just double check that these Tuesdays and Sundays work for you. We start on January 23rd with orientation, and then our first class is February 6th. And then we meet at various times until June 2nd. So from February to June. And we'll make sure that you get access to all of these dates and times so that you can double check everything with your calendar. And then I also wanted to be very transparent and very clear about the time commitment. So the projected time here is outside of live class. Okay, so live classes are usually 2 or 2.5 hours, and then it varies throughout the program. So we start off strong. So the first 2 weeks, there's about a 10 or 11 hour commitment outside of the live class time. And then it kind of dips, 6 and then 4 and then 10. And it really does crescendo, and it kind of hits the highest time commitment in April and May. So just wanted to be very clear that from like April 16th to May 28th, so about a month and a half, we're meeting consistently live, and it's about 12-hour time commitment every 2 weeks outside of that. And the reason for that is mostly those session swaps. So, it takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours per session, and then you're swapping with each other and with practice clients. So that on top of the reading. So just wanted to be transparent about April and May. That's the heaviest part of the training as far as time commitment goes. All right. What questions do you all have about the training or anything that we covered or didn't cover this evening?
I'm curious about the shift to some of the digital learning. I'm curious about the platform that it's on, and then also kind of how you might describe sort of like, I get that it's more sort of the content, but sort of, is it like, here's the reading, then we do a little bit of lecture / background on the reading. And the reason I'm asking is because I can be a little attentionally challenged with online learning that's not sort of live. And so it just helps me know kind of how it's going to be. Yeah. Does
Yeah.
that make sense, my question?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll start with
Thanks.
the first one. You had said a little bit more about the platform or how the learning is. So on each class page, it'll have essentially a video that you can watch right there, but the video is hosted on YouTube, and it's the digital self-paced learning. So it's all on that, and it's a Squarespace membership site. I don't know. I don't think you really want those details, but just in case. And then what was your other question? Here's what I'll say to this, and then I think Sarah might have something else to say to it. When we actually do meet live, we will be reviewing what was in whatever digital learning you needed to consume before that class. We'll kind of high level talk about it, and then the discussion will really be around like that material. So it's a way for us to essentially deliver you that material that we want to teach you, but then also a way for us to like dig even deeper. So if something didn't make sense, or something's just not working for you, or something like that, then we actually have those container times to dig in a little bit deeper. Sarah, did it look like you were going to say something, but I don't know if I misread that.
Yeah, so it's typically 1 to 2 digital learning videos due per live class. And so you'll have all those due dates. You'll know exactly when the video needs to be watched to be able to participate in said live training. I'm the same way, where if I don't have like a live class to look forward to or something like that, I end up falling off track. So I think like having those due dates and knowing that the discussion is going to depend on watching the video at least helps me motivationally. So yeah, it's about 1 to 2 digital video per live class in addition to reading, practicing, and that sort of thing in between.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. It was actually one of the things that both Sarah and I sometimes struggle with is like self-paced digital learning. So we were a little bit apprehensive to like add that piece to it, which is why we wanted to make sure like in the classes we really dig in a little bit deeper to have that additional structure. Yeah. But just this idea of being trauma informed and what does that mean? And what does that mean when we're working with clients? And that's one of the things that we teach. Basically, my understanding is trauma informed is to allow the client to lead. So they're the ones who are saying, yes, let's move forward into this intense part of the session, or yes, let's move forward examining this shadow. If it can be, sometimes it can be not super pleasant, delightful feelings in a session, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. But it is important to know how to handle that in our clients. We will be up facing their trauma with them at times in these sessions. So that's one of the things that I wanted to point out in case it's a question in anyone's mind who's here, or if it's a question in the future, if someone's listening or practicing. But that's where we come in with the client-centered portion of how we teach. It's really about getting an understanding of the client's mindset, why they're there, what they want to explore, and being trauma informed is that's how we do it, is allowing the client to lead and holding that space for them, that non-judgmental, compassionate space.
One of the things that we also teach is like the importance of doing our own work as hypnotists, and how important it is to get comfortable with our own shadows and the ways in which, we may be perpetuating those things that make it difficult for people of color to want to do hypnosis or be in a training like this or that sort of thing, is like really sitting with our own shadow and really holding space for each other as hypnotists to do that as well. So it's not always, about the client, but also just doing that own work for ourselves as hypnotists too.
Yeah. Yeah. And being upfront that we are, unless you actually are a trained mental health professional, we talk about that too, just as a hypnotist, just knowing like how to describe what you're doing and being upfront if you're not a trained mental health professional. So we talk about that. Another question I got was inner child work, like what we cover in our training is inner child work within that. And while we don't have a topic specific to inner child work, we definitely touch on all the ways we can explore inner child work through the practice of regression in this life, all the ways we can move into that space. And then also just shadow work as we work through that piece of shadow work that Sarah puts out, that class on shadow work, we definitely touch on inner child stuff there too. Another question that I got was, what kind of equipment do we need for this? And it's really access to the internet, the time that we covered. Sarah has done so much work, like drilling down to the homework and how much time, the time estimates. She refines those. She asks alumni about it. So she puts in a lot of effort into that. So it's like the time, the internet, and the books. So those are kind of the big pieces that you need.
I was just curious about the text you've chosen in terms of the context you were talking about earlier with, decolonizing from the inside out, which I really appreciate. I'm sure there aren't a lot of, contemporary modern texts, but I was just curious about the ones you chose. I don't need a huge, deep answer, but I just was wondering if you could share a little bit about that.
For me, they were the books that I used when I was in training. And I have read, some other books, but there's just not a lot out there, people of color. Unfortunately, I would love to see that changed. I would love to, play any role that I can to help see that changed. But yeah, those two books to me, and they're books that I continually go back to, especially the Winifred Blake Lucas, the regression books. Yeah, let's close this officially. And just knowing I will send a link if you're listening to this soon after this live, or if you were here for the live, I'll be sending an email tomorrow morning with the registration link if that's something you want to do. And whether you were here for this or listening in the future, if you have any questions, please let us know. Okay, so hands on you somewhere, blink eyes closed. Feel yourself wherever you are, in the chair, if you're standing, if you're relaxed back. And just be here now. Just knowing that you have all the information. Good. And just knowing that as any questions arise, we are here for you. Let's close this with one full breath together. So blow all your air out of your lungs. Take a deep breath in and a full breath out. Good, good. There it is.